everyone. My name is Francesca. Thank you so much for joining me today for the New Media Retailer podcast. Super excited today to be joined by the CEO of New Media Retailer, Keegan Edwards. Keegan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Francesca.
Yeah, of course. I do want to kick it off before we get into our little bit of Q&A here with a bio about you, just to kind of bring everyone up to speed, all of the listeners, about who you are and where you're coming from. So Keegan Edwards is the CEO of New Media Retailer, an award-winning digital marketing agency for independent retailers. He's the author of the book, A Store Near Me, which provides the roadmap for how small retail businesses can build an online presence that outranks, outshines, and outlasts the competition. You'll also find his business courses on Udemy, where they have attracted over 13,000 students worldwide. Over the past 12 years, he has helped thousands of small business owners create winning marketing and business development strategies. He is a native of upstate New York and currently resides in Denver, Colorado with his wife and his daughter. A few high-level bullet points. Keegan is an expert in small business marketing and strategy, business management and leadership, sales, entrepreneurship, business development, and e-commerce. Wow, let's kick it off. So tell us, how did you get here? What's your backstory? How'd you get started?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to share that, Francesca. And thanks again for having me. And thanks to everybody for listening to the podcast. I know we had a great first season and had some awesome interviews with some tremendous small business owners and independent retailers across the country. So pleased to be kind of capping off the first season, and we'll take a break until we get to season 2, which I'm sure will be filled with some more great stories and insights from small business owners, such as the people listening today. So I'll back all the way up to when I graduated from college, Francesca. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I graduated with a degree in political science and Chinese, and my plan was actually to go to China to teach English, but I needed a job in the meantime before I actually got to that. So I had worked for a couple of wonderful people, Jeannie and Rick Brightman and Dick Snyder, and they had started this new company, and this was in 2009, called New Media Retailer, and they were looking for someone to help with sales for the summer. So they hired me as the first salesperson for the company at $9 an hour and said, get to work. Let's see what we can do to get some more accounts. Now, I was really fortunate because they gave me an incentive. I had about 10 weeks to work for the company, and they gave me an incentive for a pretty sizable bonus, especially to me at the time, if I could attract 25 customers to the business in that 10-week span. So I set about, having no idea what I was doing, trying to contact small business owners with my college intern experience in sales, trying to get them to sign up for this brand new company with a handful of customers that was not even cash flow positive yet, that had a bunch of people working hard to try and figure it out and make something happen. So first few weeks, I had absolutely no luck reaching people. I was sending emails, wasn't getting very far at all. So what I did was I bought some books on cold calling and sales, and I got to work trying to get a little bit better, a lot bit better, because I needed it. And eventually I learned that I need to start calling people. I need to start putting us out there and putting myself out there. And boy, was that a struggle. People couldn't remember my name. I got called all sorts of different names, hung up on, all of those types of things that you hear. But I just started making hundreds and hundreds of phone calls. And eventually I learned some things. I learned that it wasn't really about me. It wasn't about us. It wasn't about our product. It was about trying to connect and have a genuine relationship with people, understand what the challenges were in their business, and understanding how the things that we were doing were things that could help them grow and develop their business. And so I worked at it and got to a place where I had acquired some sales and things like that. And then we got a lucky break and got invited to a trade show, which was through Land O'Lakes, Purina Animal Nutrition. And we got invited to attend their trade show, which was great exposure for the business. And at that trade show, I was able to sign more accounts, bring them into the business, and hit the goal. And I learned some important lessons through that. Lessons about attitude and work ethic and how important it is to kind of keep with it and keep a positive attitude and actually connect and understand, what it is that your customers or potential customers are going through. If you actually want to develop a great product and a great business, it's really got to be about the customers and what they need, what their needs are. And then if you work hard and you keep that great attitude and perspective, sometimes you need a little bit of luck, but it'll help you on the way to achieving your goals. So that was kind of where it started. And then, I had that plan to go to China still and teach English, but due to some health issues in my family, I kind of started to reconsider that and say maybe that's not the path I should go down right now. And Jeannie, the owner of the company at the time, made a great offer for me to stay on and continue with sales. And we set a new goal to bring our services to 200 customers across the country. And the whole team kind of rallied together to work hard at that. And we got to a place where we had 199 customers for New Media Retailer. And we sat at that number for weeks and weeks until Janet Thomas, through her relationship with an existing customer, was able to close that last deal, and we got to 200 customers before the end of the year. And really, New Media Retailer at that point, that was, I think, 2011, really New Media Retailer was off and running after that, serving independent retailers, that first group and many more throughout the years and across the country. And I was fortunate because I learned some great lessons at that point. I learned some great lessons about what it took to build a business, what it took to build a great product and a great team. The power of setting goals was an early, really had an impact on me, because Jeannie had a good sense for creating stretch but achievable goals that were fair but were difficult, and what that can do to accelerate a business. The value of a team, because I sure wasn't going to get that last account. I had nobody else talking to me at that point. But it takes a team effort. No matter what you're trying to achieve, it takes the whole team coming together, buying into that common purpose, and that's really how you achieve things in business and in life in a lot of ways. And then the relationships too. It was the relationships that developed amongst that team, but then even the relationship that Janet had cultivated with the customer, because I had sold accounts, but I wasn't the one executing anything. And if everything fell apart after the fact, if the relationship was poor, if the service was poor, those customers weren't going to stick around. But that relationship in business, with people doing business and more business with people that they like, that had a powerful impact on our business and the relationships that we had too. So that was kind of my story of getting into New Media Retailer, how it got started, how the business got going. And really that's been the foundation for us ever since, has been building a winning team and cultivating relationships amongst ourselves and with our customers.
You obviously talk a lot about building a team, building a culture. Talk to us a little bit about creating and cultivating a culture in business today and what that might look like.
Yeah, so there are a few things that come to mind when you ask that. There was a author by the name of Daniel Goleman who wrote a really excellent, or came up with a really excellent framework about what it takes. He writes a lot about like emotional intelligence and leadership, and he talks specifically about the different leadership strategies that are necessary in a successful business or any type of organization. And those strategies are things that he called authoritative, which was about goal setting and trying to lead the team based on a vision or example. Affiliative leadership, which is about being there for everybody, encouraging them, helping them along, making sure that they feel heard and understand and a part of that team. Coaching, so making sure that leaders within the organization at any level or in any place are there to coach others and help them succeed. And then including elements of like democracy into the culture too. So, there are certain things that come up where nobody's going to have the right answer, and everybody should participate in figuring out how to move the business forward next. And then there are times where other things make sense too. Pace setting, which is leading by kind of working hard and setting the example for the pace of work in the organization. And then even coercive, which should be used very carefully, but sometimes you got to tell people exactly what you need from them and what to do. And it's really the combination of those things from all the leaders in the organization, knowing when and how to apply those types of things, that leads to kind of successful leadership in the business. And then there was a project that Google conducted called Project Aristotle, which was a study of what creates great teams and what creates, these teams that are just super high performance. And they found that the cultures where problems were framed as learning opportunities, where everybody had the opportunity to grow and learn and develop and overcome challenges together, where there was a safety net of like what they called psychological safety, meaning that if we fail, it's okay. And we should take those risks, we should take those chances, but there's a safety net in terms of like some psychological safety for people involved. And also the people are accountable, right? They're going to do their best and they're going to be held accountable. Not in a way that's negative necessarily, but we're expecting everybody to pull their part, and we're going to be here for them when they fail, as long as they're trying their best. So I think that people, especially we're seeing this with the way the economy is developing, people value autonomy, they value empowerment in their job, they value being given the resources that they need to succeed. So I think it's probably a combination of those things. Leadership that's there, that says here's where we're going, that we're here for people, with the ways that we're going to get there, that we care about them, we encourage them, that we support them with the resources they need to be successful, that there's a safety net, that people feel like they can be themselves, be heard, and that the norms in the organization, that's what's going to bring out the best, is setting a culture where the way of working, the way of interacting with each other encourages people to be themselves and bring their best self to work. And if you can kind of accomplish those things between the leaders and the people in the organization, I think that's really where you build your culture, is on that foundation.
A hot topic that I see, I get email blasts about it, I see it talked about in forums and blogs, whatever, is building or maintaining a culture in this, I don't want to say post-COVID, but I'll use it for lack of other things to say, building and maintaining a culture that has maybe gone remote because of COVID, and continuing to build that unity and that teamwork, and having people feel like they are bought into a concept, even if it's not as close as maybe it used to be all in one office. Can you talk a little bit about maintaining that team structure, that team unity in maybe a remote atmosphere where a lot of businesses now are remote?
Yeah, so the remote atmosphere is challenging. I think you have to make ways to get people together in person if that's at all possible. And I think that taking those opportunities is a great first step. Now, that's not going to be available to everybody. So I'm sure that one of the things that we can share that we've done is to try to create those more organic interactions amongst everybody too. So we do some fun things every few weeks where we just get people together just specifically for the purpose to chat. And we try to have different teams from different organizations, people who aren't working together in the same way all the time, and just have an informal Zoom meeting where people can hang out, can talk, can chat, get to know one another. And the topic's not even work. The topic is something fun that's relevant to pop culture or interests, and just get people to chat and engage and build that relationship with one another. And then I think there are other things too that I've seen our team do, which I really like, which is use some of the tools. So we're still remote, but use things like Slack or just impromptu phone calls to just connect with one another and show that they care and engage in a way that you would similarly. So people saying good morning to each other when the workday starts, and kind of chiming in to touch base and see how everyone's doing to start that day. So that connection, I would say, it's probably a combination of those three things. Come up with some reasons to get together, even if it's still virtual, but just outside the context of work, as you would organically in an office, so that you can continue to cultivate those relationships. Make time to get together in person if you can, or if that's at all feasible, even in a remote environment. Those are some of the ways that I think you can still cultivate that culture.
Leaning more into team building culture, what are some really important skills you feel like small business owners should learn to develop, or maybe possess already?
I think a lot of small business owners have a good amount of emotional intelligence, and it's helped them get to that point and work with their team effectively. But emotional intelligence is I would say probably the number one skill, maybe followed by sales, personal selling ability, and goal setting and things like that. But emotional intelligence really has kind of four facets to it. It's the ability to empathize with others. That's one. So can you feel what others are feeling? And as a business owner, you have to be able to empathize with both the staff and the team that you're working with, to make sure that you understand what they're feeling and going through as they attempt to do their best. And then you have to be able to empathize with the customers. What's the customer experiencing? What are they experiencing when they're happy? What are they experiencing when they're upset? And that deep, like, empathetic understanding is kind of a key component. The other component of emotional intelligence is emotional regulation. So you can kind of, as a business owner, there are going to be highs and lows that happen all the time. And can you kind of regulate your own emotion? Are you flying off the handle, getting angry or sad or upset or happy? Because that can really impact your ability, as a leader or business owner. People are going to look to you for cues about the emotion they should feel and how they should react to things. And the ability to regulate your own emotion, that doesn't mean showing no emotion. It's actually the opposite. It's actually learning to express your emotions in a healthy way and regulate the way that you're feeling and the feelings that come up, to express them in an appropriate way, given different contexts. And then the other two are social components of emotional intelligence. It's social awareness. So what is happening in the organization? How are people interacting with one another? Can you spot those places that people are working together really well, or customers are having a good experience with your associates? Can you find ways or points where they're not? And can you identify the social atmosphere in your environment? And then the last is really social influence, right? So as a small business owner, you're going to need to influence the team. You're going to need to influence customers. You're going to need to influence situations. And that's kind of the fourth component is what's your capacity to do that? So I think, the most important skill, and it's something that I try to focus on, and I know many others do as well, but as a business owner, I really do think emotional intelligence and those four facets are probably some of the most key skills. And obviously there's technical skills and things that are important too, but in terms of universal skills that lead to success, I think it's probably emotional intelligence.
How important do you think sales skills are for a leader to have or possess?
Well, coming from a sales background myself, I'm admittedly biased, but I think many things are sales, and that has to do with providing like a performance review for somebody, or dealing with an upset customer. Sometimes sales has a negative connotation, as in, you're trying to get something out of somebody, but I've never really seen sales that way, or successful salespeople that way. Successful salespeople are consultative. They consult with the person on what's going on, almost the way that a physician might be consultative and trying to understand. Hey, they'll consult you on what are you experiencing. Here's my knowledge. Here's how it applies. Here's how I can help. So I think sales skills are extremely important to a small business owner, because they're going to manifest in important ways in all sorts of different contexts within the business. And the ability to be consultative but provide direction is really what sales is about, and this what the skill means and why it matters.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think that's a great answer. I want to shift gears a little bit away from like team building and culture, and focus maybe a little bit on like business operations. What strategies would you maybe recommend to a small business today, whether they're just getting started or trying to get organized? What are some key strategies that might help someone be successful?
Small businesses have to compete with large businesses. And here's the thing that I've noticed is different about large businesses. They have an information technology strategy, and that's often the strategy that's missing in a small business. So in a big business, you have a whole department that's dedicated to whether it's e-commerce or whether it's your infrastructure, your systems that you use for ERP or managing distribution or things like that. And there's a strategy associated with the type of software that you buy, the type of new technology that you implement, why you're doing it, what you hope it accomplishes for your business. And I think that's probably the strategy that I would recommend for businesses now today, especially in a post-COVID environment where things have been accelerated to the degree that they have, is what is your strategy? So we're talking, primarily to independent retailers in this podcast. So what's the strategy with the point of sale system, right? Like what point of sale system, and there's all sorts out there. Why are you going to go with a certain one? What do you hope to accomplish? That's what strategy is about. It's where are you going as a business? What are you hoping to accomplish? And how can these things help you get there? So, point of sale systems, website platforms, cloud marketing services like MailChimp, Constant Contact, Drip Campaign, all these different types of services, right? If you sit back and say, for my business, what are the important pieces of technology I need, right? You start with where am I trying to get to? What's my vision, my goal, my mission as a business? And then work back to say, okay, what are the things, the tools that can help me get there? What are the technologies that can accelerate that? And you might look at it and say, we need a point of sale system that integrates really well with an email marketing system. So we can collect customer information, and then have campaigns that go out to them that encourage them to come back into the store. And that might need to be tied in with a loyalty program, ideally, right? So what's the strategy? What's the why behind what you have? And I think that's usually, not only is it, I think sometimes small businesses go through the buying cycle and say, oh, I have a pain point and I'll fix that with this type of software, versus sitting back and flipping that on its head and saying, here's my strategy, here's where my business is going, here are the technology tools I need that are going to help me get there, here's what I need them to do, and I need a plan to harness these things to accelerate and drive my business forward. So there's plenty of ways that a business can strategize. It can be about a marketing plan, it can be in the context of operations, it can be all those things. But I think that key component, especially now, is that technology is an important facet of competing with other small businesses, but certainly with large businesses who are thinking that way on a constant basis and have teams dedicated to thinking that way. I think that's where small businesses can really succeed if they step back, because the tools are there. There's a lot of technology solutions that are gearing themselves to small businesses. If the small businesses step back and say, what's my strategy? What do I need to get there? How can technology help me improve and drive my business forward? That's a key differentiator that can help them win.
There's one component of something that you mentioned that I want you to elaborate on a little bit more, and that is, as small businesses, sometimes resources can be really limited, and whether it be daily things that come up, weekly, monthly problems arise. How can a business owner stay focused on long-term goals when it feels like there may be constantly things are coming up that they have to continue to solve for? How can they stay organized or on track with some of those long-term goals or missions that you had talked about?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a few different ways that I probably advocate for staying on track for long-term goals. It comes back to planning, right, and goal setting. And I think that making time to do that exercise is really important. So for a business, that you have to plan for time and how things are going to change over time, and you have to plan for your product. So you have to embrace this like flexible and agile planning process to move the business forward. So what I mean with your product set is like, hey, if your business wants to succeed into the future, if you want to stay on track with where you're going, what is your plan for your core product? In the context of retail, you might primarily be a hardware store. Okay, what's your plan to keep improving your hardware product offering? Right, that's really important. How are you going to iterate that? What products are you going to bring in? How are you going to move that forward? And then you need a plan for how you're going to expand your business too. Are you going to open a store in an adjacent market? Are you going to expand the store and have a different product? Are you going to try and do pet food, things like that too? Like, what is the plan that's kind of outside of your core product, but still makes sense in the context of, are you going to go into a new market with a new store? Are you going to go into, building a new department to your business? And then planning for things that are brand new. What else can you do? What other services or things can you help with? So that's kind of one aspect of it. And then the other is, we think of planning as having to be this really like rigid process where here's my plan, here's how I'm going to move forward. And it really doesn't have to be. I mean, if you want to stay on track with where you're going, you certainly need to set that plan. Where do I want to be 3 to 5 years from now? But then back that up. Okay, what's that look like in a year? Okay, what's that look like this quarter? And then what's that look like even to this week, right? So taking that few minutes, and you might plan for 3 to 5 years, that might be a longer timeline day of actually planning things through. A year might take you half a day, but then even down to planning your week to accomplish those goals, that only takes 20 minutes to half hour. What do I need to get done this week to move towards where I want to be at the end of the quarter? What do I need to get done this quarter, right, to be where I want to be at the end of the year? And that's how you kind of build those building blocks of staying on track. So I'd say it's a combination of two planes, looking at your product plane and saying, how's my business going to grow? My core products, adjacent markets or new products, and then brand new things that I can bring to the table to grow my business. And then time, like the plane of time. So this week, this quarter, this year, define where you want to be, and then break it into those small steps and have a plan for each week and each quarter for how to get there.
Obviously, I'm sure a big part of that is being operationally sound. So how can a business improve its efficiency and operations in today's world?
So one of the things I love is it's very simple. It's just people, process, and control. So I don't know if this has happened to you, Francesca, but how many times have you walked into a business and you say, "Hey, I have this question, or can you help me with this?" And the person goes, I don't know. I don't know who does it. Let me try and figure that out, right? Because that business, at least in that situation, has not defined the person, the process, and the control for what needs to happen to serve the customer. So it does two things. It helps you become more efficient, but it also helps your customers have a better experience than that. I don't know what to do, right? That they could experience. So whether you're a restaurant, whether you're a retail store, whether you're a service business, like lawn care, things like that, if you identify, here are the things we do, here's the person, so that's what the people part means, here's the person who's responsible for that. Could be you as the business owner, could be one of the people on staff. Here's the process for how we do it, right? Here's our approach. We've determined this is the best way to do it. Because if we just say, oh, this person does it, or we have different people doing it, it could be done differently each time. And there's probably a best way to do it. And then the control. So at the end of the process, how do we make sure it was done right so the customer is happy? Like, what is that process at the end? That's what's the control. How do we make sure, okay, we've identified the person who's supposed to do it, how they're supposed to do it, and person can be the specific person or the specific role in the business. Here's the process they follow, and then here's how we make sure that process doesn't go off the rails. Here's the control for making sure that it happened the way we expect it to.
How do you, whether you're having an in-person interaction or an online interaction with someone, how important would you say like customer service is in today's world for small businesses? Is it still one of the most important factors? And how can a business, whether they are face-to-face or online, really strive to offer customer service in today's world?
Yeah, customer service is key. I think, especially as we move to this place, I chat widgets and things like that and automated customer service lines are things that exist now. And in some ways, those can be really useful and they can be helpful. But I don't know how you feel, Francesca, but when I get a really automated experience, it's a turn off from a business. I think that's where one of the places where small businesses have an advantage, but they can embrace these technologies like a chat widget as long as they're ready to, again, person process control of how they're going to manage it, right? That can be a great experience for the customer who says, well, I go a big box, retailer, and I try to chat with them or contact them and I talk to a robot. I go to this place, this local hardware store or pet supply store, and I try to chat with them and I talk to the real person. Sometimes I even talk to the owner. I get the answer I need, the information I need, and that's where I make my purchase. So I think that we can apply today's tools to great customer service if we're really thoughtful about, again, like customer experience. And that's where being kind of a customer centric business is so important. And what that means is that, a lot of businesses make the mistake of saying, well, we need to get more efficient this way, or this is what's best for us. But customer service, it should be something that permeates a whole organization. And the only way to do that is to set the customer as the beacon for where the business is going. That customer's experience is where your mission, your values, your strategy, your tactics, it all comes from trying to serve that customer in the best way that you possibly can. And when that customer is the beacon for who you are and where you're going, each individual decision, like should we use a chat widget and how, or who should answer the phone, or when should we be open? If you've set that as the customer, then you're going to say, well, the decision about when our store should be open isn't about what's best for me. It's about what's best for the customer. When are they shopping? When's convenient for them? Should we have a store pickup on our website or local delivery? Well, it's not about what's best for me or most cost. It's about what's best for the customer, what's most convenient for them, what adds and value to their lives and helps them. So I think customer service, is something that if it permeates the whole organization, you see it because you understand that organization has set the customer as the beacon for where they're going and what they want to achieve. And then everything else from the mission, the values, and the individual decisions flow naturally from servicing that customer in the best way possible. So that might be just like more of a philosophical customer service answer, but I think that's how you get there. And I think, we could talk about individual decisions here and there, but if you really want to be a customer service heavy, focused, intensive company, which it is super important, that has to be your guiding light, is your customer's experience with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like so often we talk about customer service and we talk about sales. Obviously, you do have a pretty elaborate sales background. So, what are some what are some ways a business could look to improve sales or improve their sales operations?
Yeah, so I mean, the one thing that I've always found helpful in sales, and it permeates to marketing as well, but is learning to think and talk in terms of features, benefits, and values, and when you're talking to your customer. So I'll use a quick example in the context of what a lot of retailers are going through, which is, you know, let's just say you've made the decision as a retailer to offer delivery to your customers, right? If you want to, if pet supply, feed, hardware, whatever it is, you're going to say, I'm going to do local delivery from my store. I'm going to leverage that last mile advantage I have, and I'm going to deliver it. Well, when you're selling that feature, when you're selling that and you talk in terms of feature, you're going to say, I offer delivery. That's the feature, right? That's the feature of your business is you offer delivery. When you're talking in terms of benefits to somebody, well, what's the benefit of you delivering for me as the customer? Well, the benefit as a customer is that, you don't have to drive to the store. That's what that means. So the feature is delivery. The benefit is, well, I don't have to, my customers don't have to drive to the store. That's the benefit they get. But what's the value that the customer gets? Well, the value that they have is, well, maybe they get to spend more time with their kids after work because they don't have to drive and have another errand or to do. We all lead busy lives. They don't have to drive to the store to pick up their dog food or that tool that they needed for the weekend project. They get to come home after work and spend time with their kids, playing with their kids. That's the value that you just added to their lives by offering delivery. So I think one of the most powerful things that you can do to increase sales is let that thinking about, am I talking about features? Am I talking about benefits? Or am I talking about value in the way that I talk to my customers? And that's where it goes back to being consultative, understanding, what it is that your customers need deeply, right? Empathy as a primary skill for a business owner, understanding in the sales process, matching up. It's not about you, it's about what the customer needs to thrive. And then thinking that back to, if you want to increase sales, well, how are you adding value to their lives, right? We can come up with all sorts of features of your products. It can be, in dog food, it can be, well, the feature is that this has this type of ingredient. The benefit of that is it gives them more calcium to the dog. Well, what's the value? Well, your dog's going to be around longer and live a longer, healthier life and bring more joy to you and your family's life, right? That's the value that, or like, really healthy organic dog food might bring to people's lives. So that's one way, and telling your story too, because I think especially with small businesses, on their website or in their interactions with customers or in the community, people care about that story. And I can think of a handful of businesses that are really powerful and well connected to their community because they've said, hey, I'm connecting with you on this level. We share this value, whether that's we value our community, we value the health of pets, we value a job well done. We share that same value, and that's why you should buy from me, because it's not just about the product, it's about buying from people that you trust and share the same mission and values in life and in community. And I think the businesses that these things ultimately lead to sales, right? When you're trying to add value to people's lives and when you're trying to share that same, mission with them, whatever that is in life, those are the things people identify with and want to buy from you, because we all have a ton of options as consumers. And if you really want to increase sales and drive sales, it's taking a thoughtful approach to how do I add value? What are my values? What's my mission? And then exposing those things as often as possible in the sales process or marketing process, depending on your business context.
When talking about customer service and sales, you talked about a lot of components of a website, whether it be a chat feature, increasing sales, telling your story. How can a business, what are the building blocks to getting a successful, credible website that'll bring people to you instead of a competitor, whether that be someone local or a chain that maybe is across the US and maybe even into other countries?
Yeah, so I think there's really 6 things. So I'll extend it beyond a website a little bit into 6 things that I think when it comes to like digital marketing, we know as small business owners, right? That's the industry we're in, but there's a lot of industries somebody started talking to us about, then we say, oh, that's overwhelming, right? I don't know where to start with that. So for us, and the way that we help our small business owners who work with us is I think there's 6 components. That's really what you need to pay attention to. There's the website, there's social media, there's email marketing, your online reputation, which by that I mean reviews, and then there's local SEO and paid traffic. Those are really the 6 things that are the foundations of what you can do online. And then if you want to build an effective online presence, I'm not saying that you have to do all of those. It would certainly be great, but I understand there's budget and human resource constraints to all of those. So it's again, stepping back and saying, okay, what are my goals for my business? And then once you understand the goals for your business, tie that back into each one of those things. So if it's the website, what do you need out of a website to achieve your goals? In retail, that probably means having your products, your prices, your inventory on your website. That's probably going to help you achieve your business goals. Now you can make decisions about whether you do local delivery or store pickup, but it's going to tie back into your goals. So you think about for each one of those 6 things, whether it's social media, what's my business goal? How does social media help support that? Is it about being engaging in the community? Is it about acquiring customers? And you're going to think of social media in different terms. And okay, should I do paid ads? Should I dedicate somebody to, really engage with customers on a daily, hourly, unit of time? It's stepping back, saying, what are my business goals? And then you kind of pick, where do I need to play then? What do I need to do? How do I leverage these so that they fit my good business goals really well? And then with each of them, defining what does winning look like? Like what would be a successful website? What would be a successful social media presence then that aligns with my business goals? What would be a successful online reputation that aligns with my business goals? And once you've defined all that, then the easy part is just figuring out what's required, right? So, okay, I know what my business goal is. I want to be thought of as the thought leader in this regard in my community. Okay, and I want to be seen as the most trusted resource. Okay, that means probably my online reputation is going to be important, right? And so what do I need to do? What's success going to look like? Above a 4.5 star reviews, right? That's going to be important to me. So now you've defined your business goal. You've defined one of the platforms that's going to be important for getting you there. So then you start to say, okay, now I know also what does winning look like? What is a good, I want over 4.5 star reviews. Okay, now I just have to figure out what's required. Do I need to text customers? Do I need to ask them in person? Do I need a software tool or platform? Again, strategy. Do I need a platform or something that I can use in my IT strategy to help? Is it my POS? Can send a notification to people asking them for a review after shopping my store, things like that. So I think there's kind of 6 building blocks or foundations, and you figure out which ones and the right way to construct them for your business by answering those questions about each one.
For those 6 that you mentioned, how important do you think it is for business owners to be aware of how their competition is utilizing each of those 6?
It's a good question. I think that you want to be aware of your competition, but it's a slippery slope. If you're chasing your competition all the time or trying to think about what they're doing, you could fall into the trap of trying to match it or create parity. And just because it's right for them doesn't mean it's right for you. I think that there are lessons to be learned about what they're doing and what's making them successful. And you should definitely be aware and take those lessons into your planning process. But I think, and I'll go back again to, that way of increasing sales, is it's going to be more about staying customer centric. So be aware of how your competitors are trying to do similar things, what their construction is, but specifically think about what's best for your customer. And if you stay hyper focused on what's going to be the best customer experience and add the most value to their lives, that may lead you to doing some of the same things, building your website in a similar way to your competitors, may lead you into a similar social media presence, but it may not too. You may say, to best serve my customer, to add the most value to their website, my Google ads are going to look a little different, or my local SEO strategy is going to be a little different, or I'm going to construct my email newsletters less promotionally and more informative, right? All sorts of decisions start to flow when you're thinking about how do I add value to that customer. So it's something to be aware of, and it's lessons for you, but I think that then needs to be kind of coalesce with what's best for the customer ultimately. And that's where you drive your decision from.
Got it. Looking into the future a little bit, how can a business prepare for the future and future business needs?
Yeah, there's over the course of the next few years, I think that embracing that last mile advantage is going to be really important for businesses in the retail space specifically. So what I mean by the last mile advantage, and you're seeing it now with all sorts of different services, is that if I'm a hardware store, convenience hardware store, one of my advantages is usually the Lowe's, the Home Depots, those are a little bit farther away. Typically, they may not be right next to me. They're probably in a plaza somewhere, maybe a 10-20 minute drive. They're not going to be as conveniently located as many of the hardware stores might be in a community or a town. And when I look at, Amazon or e-commerce, they still have the problem of needing, at best, it's next day delivery for something that they have. So the retailer really operates in this space of advantage, where when somebody needs something and they need it conveniently, usually that retailer is going to be the most convenient option for that product. So if I'm about to, I'll make it specific with an example. If I wake up in the morning and say, my lawn needs a little work, I'd love to put a little fertilizer on and seed it and watering, things like that. And I'm going to need a few things to do that. Well, if I want to buy from Amazon, I'm not going to be able to do that project this weekend because it's going to take time to get there to me. Home Depot or Lowe's may carry some of those products, but maybe it's a bigger trip. It's a less convenient trip. And whereas the retailer is really has a kind of that last mile is getting it to my doorstep, they have that advantage. And so it's at the very base level, it's an easier trip for me to get right there to them to go and pick up that, that bag of fertilizer that I need to start the project. Maybe it's 5 minutes instead of 20 minutes, less out of the way, right? That's that advantage. And then the retailers who really lean into that advantage are even taking advantage of things like delivery, right? They're saying, I'll just deliver it to your doorstep. It's 5 minutes for you, or it's 5 minutes for me. Order from me, I'll have it on your doorstep in 5 minutes. I'm going to do that same day delivery. I'm going to create that infrastructure. I'm going to create and leverage my convenience factor. So I think that's probably one of the areas where I see businesses improving, in the retail space into the future, is really understanding, how do I have an advantage in today's day and age with e-commerce players and big box stores? Like, where does my advantage lie? And I think a lot are going to find that they have a strong advantage, at least in some specific markets, in that last mile and creating the most convenient experience for a customer.
What are some things you see businesses doing today to be successful 3 to 5 years from now?
I think the ones that are taking technology seriously in their business, I'm obviously coming from this industry, so that's my vantage point. So I'll definitely recognize that. But there are businesses that are taking technology seriously, and we obviously build websites and do marketing technology solutions. That's not the only thing that I mean. There are a lot of insights to be gained by having a strong POS system and by upgrading and investing in it. There's a lot to be gained by having a strong, like QuickBooks Cloud system, or reporting on your business metric, your sales and your growth and your number of customers, your customer count, your foot traffic. There are tools like Door, where you can track the number of footfalls in your business every day. It's an app, and I think it's something that plugs right in the doorway that you can track how many people are coming in and when you have the most traffic. And if you think about how those affect the rest of your business, we'll just take Door, for example, something totally unrelated to what NMR does, but still a technology investment, is, okay, if I know who comes in my store and when, do I see a difference if I run a radio ad? Does that impact how many people are coming in my store while the radio ad's running? So that can impact how you're spending your marketing dollars to get the biggest impact. Does it change if I do Google ads? Do I all of a sudden see a higher, more footfalls in my business? Does it? And then that can help you with things like staffing and efficiency too, right? So we're in an era right now where staffing is a particular challenge for small businesses. And a way to kind of think about that or do things is, okay, well, what if I know my most high traffic times of day or days of the week? What if I know that a little bit better because I've invested in technology that's going to give me that business intelligence? Well, then I can plan my staffing better, and I can plan my staffing more efficiently, and I can more wisely use the limited resources that I have. So I think that's something that retailers are taking seriously today, is tools that give them business intelligence. So whether that's financial or in foot traffic in their business, or analytics online in terms of how many people are visiting them, why they're visiting them, which keywords they use to find them, whether they leave reviews, do they call the store, do they drive there? It's business intelligence, it's financial intelligence, and then obviously it's tools that make the life of the customer easier. So when you invest in technology, you might have a quicker checkout process because you've invested in a better point of sale system, or you might be able to check people out outside of a register, and that makes life more convenient. You can check them out at their car. All of these things, when you take that seriously, it starts to impact a lot of the decision making and advantages and further the advantages that you have as a business. So I think taking technology seriously, but also the ones that are staying close to the markets and their customers. There's been no time, at least in my career, recent memory, where customer preferences have changed as quickly and dramatically as they have throughout COVID. And those things will continue to change. And so the customers, the businesses that are staying close to their customers, that are asking for feedback and making decisions, not just, again, in the context of what they want to do or is best for them or most efficient, but taking the customer's viewpoint and their changing preferences and trends into consideration as they make business decisions. I think those are the retailers, and last mile delivery goes along with this too, that are successful now and will still be successful 3 to 5 years from now.
I think there's probably 100 more questions I could ask you, but I'll wrap it up with just one. If you were to give someone who is just looking to get started one piece of advice, starting a small business in today's world, in today's economy, what would that piece of advice be?
I think the best piece of advice or thing that I've learned over time is to expect to build things brick by brick or step by step. A lot of times that we think, okay, if I'm going to achieve something, or if I'm going to go and do something, I've got to do it all at once, or I'll do that someday, right? But taking that first step, even if you have no idea what you're doing when you start a business or where you want to be, taking that first step is really important. And then that second step, and then that third step. And after a while, you're walking, then you're running, then you've gone a mile, you've gone 2 miles, and you can look back and say, wow, look at everything that we've built. And that's a really great feeling. But I think it's almost intimidating when you look at a business or starting a business or the prospect of doing that. And it looks like a marathon, right? If we were to sit there and say, oh, I've got to run a marathon, that's pretty intimidating. But a marathon's one step at a time. And you can walk, or at least I would walk during a marathon. And you're still going to get there, right? It might take you a little bit longer, but you're never going to get there if you're not willing to lay it brick by brick, step by step. And that doesn't mean you need to know what you're doing. It just means you got to be willing to take that first step and then that next step. And then eventually you're going to cross that 26 miles, or you're going to build that house. But nothing's built all at once. It's all built by having the courage to take that first step and then lay brick by brick every day after that.
Keegan, thank you so much for joining us. For all of our listeners, how can they find you or follow you online?
I think the best spots are going to newmediaretailer.com. We have an awesome blog. We have tips that go out regularly. We do the podcast. So please find the New Media Retailer podcast on Spotify and Apple. It's on most of the major podcast platforms. So that's a great spot to follow the business and learn more about what we do. Anyone can contact me through New Media Retailer. And then if anyone wants, they can follow me on Twitter too, Keegan84.
And where can they find your book?
It's available everywhere that books are sold. So I'm very fortunate. It's a self-published book, but it's available on KeeganEdwards.com. So they can go there, and it just says book, and it takes them to this link where I have kind of a self-published place where they can purchase it right through there. But if they choose to shop with a different, kind of bookstore or place like that, or ebooks, things like that, it's available most platforms and formats in those places too.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're very grateful for your time. To all of our listeners, this is a wrap on season 1 of our podcast. Thank you so much for following along, and season 2 will be coming in early 2023. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, Francesca.